day. Yesterday it was very dark, I didn't feel much, but today we're going to the festival. I think we're gonna watch the swamp panel and have lunch. That's kind of about it. And I'm in the car with Sharon and Chris is driving. She thinks she's not showing, but she is showing.
Brought up the problematic nature of a lot of these old stories.
I think it's a great challenge as an author today to take what's great about these stories and why they're such a part of our consciousness. I mean, obviously they hit something really deep in us, and that's why we love them and why they're still alive. It's a great challenge for us to change the message.
I love tropes. I love, some tropes are fantastic, but I also like to subvert tropes. I like to take things that have been really well established and sort of turn them on their head a little bit. For me, one of my favorite Disney movies ever is Mulan, because you're taking this idea of a girl who's coming from this world of where she's supposed to get married, and she sort of subverts it by deciding that she's going to save a nation.
I love what you're saying about how we sort of address the motivations for these female characters. One of the myths that really inspired me with the Star Touch Queen was the tale of Hades and Persephone. But I didn't like the idea that she was tricked into eating pomegranate seeds. I liked the idea that she was a little power hungry.
When I think about the Cinderella story, I've heard a lot of people, be like, oh, this whole idea of, your prince will come, all this kind of stuff. Cinderella was abused for years and years and years, and like the fact that she could finally leave and go someplace safe, I think that's pretty great motivation.
Being a survivor and there being other different kinds of strength and actually being able to like physically defy your abusers, I thought it was very powerful. Important to show different kinds of strength and not just Katniss strength or Karoo strength.
If you layer in your world building and you don't do it all at once, it's a little bit more manageable. So you can sort of start by thinking, okay, what's one or two elements of this world that are sort of, and then you kind of build from there. And if you're redrafting and you're adding a little bit of the world with every draft, you're doing a little bit of research with every draft, it's more doable. It's not as scary.
Also that it grows organically with the story. I also think it depends on if you're creating entirely new secondary worlds, or if you're working with source material. Like for example, when I wrote the Star Touch Queen, it draws on a lot of Hindu mythology. So a lot of that world building meant knowing those stories, but not necessarily info dumping everything. You as an author, knowing all the rules about your world, that confidence comes through to a reader.
I would try to find a way to actively incorporate it into your work too. Like let's say I'm trying to describe fish in a fish stall with a fishmonger and it's outdoors and it's a gray sky or something like that. Try to find a way to incorporate it actively where like the sense, so incorporating senses I think is really important because then it's active, it's a part of the scene. Your reader is experiencing it alongside the character. And make sure you don't incorporate every single aspect. You don't need to describe the iridescence of the scales of the fish or something like that. Trust your reader to sort of fill in the blanks, because if you spend 3 pages describing the scales of a fish, you've lost your reader.
I want to say it's Patricia something. She's written this incredibly intensive guide to world building of all the questions to ask yourself to sort of start to figure out. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? Who?
Oh,
yes,
yeah,
reading.
that's the one.
It's I knew it was like something right. I didn't know how to pronounce her name. WREDE. And if you look it up, it'll get you thinking about what's involved in creating a world from scratch and all the things to think about, and it's amazing. I think it becomes a matter of with villainous traits, what is it that you choose to celebrate about them? Like when I was in high school and a demigoth, or like wanted to be one, I just didn't have enough eyeliner. we read Paradise Lost, and there's that great quote from Lucifer who says, "I would rather reign in hell than serve in heaven." And my first reaction when I read that was like, I bet that boy is cute. There was something to celebrate a little bit, the individuality, the sheer boldness of doing something.
And I think you're sort of talking about protagonists with sort of evil characteristics, but I actually think that if, as a writer, a lot of times if you want to write a good antagonist, he has to or she has to see themselves as the hero. And so, when I write antagonists, I try to really tell the story, from their perspective in my head at least, so they think that they're fine, and okay, maybe they do the occasional, I don't know, whipping a child to death or some such thing, but it's all for a purpose.
The occasional genocide?
Yeah, the occasional genocide, but it's for a purpose, right?
showing. This is a wide angle.